The main one being I want to understand what's happening in the world as it resets into a multipolar form, whatever that takes. And so I've spent the last year and a half, not mostly out of the country, but a lot of time out of the country, both for work, doing journalism, but also probably primarily for myself to understand. Because I see my job as trying to understand what's happening. Like if I were to put my job in one sentence, try to figure out what's happening and tell people about it as clearly as you can and honestly as you can. But first you have to figure it out. I haven't done that. I'm in the process of doing it, but I've just been a lot of places and I've learned so much, and it's just been a marvelous time in my life. And I'm grateful for it. And I think it's really affected my job. Like that's a huge part of my job now.
Okay. That's fascinating. What have you learned? Like, what's the main thing you've taken away from your foreign travels over the past, I don't know, year, 18 months?
Just that power's shifting in the world. I mean, as you look, I'm very American, extremely. I see everything through an American lens. And it really deeply matters to me what happens to the United States. I'm not a citizen of the world or any of that nonsense. I mean, I'm American on every level, and I will be until I die. So, from an American perspective, the U.S. has lost a lot of power in the last, say, 20 years since 9/11, 20, almost 25 years, and I don't think most Americans understand that. I don't think that had to happen. Maybe it was like inevitable in some historical sense or from the perspective of destiny. No empire can live forever, but we certainly hastened its demise. And so that's the first thing. The second thing is that in the United States, domestic politics is almost an afterthought to the extent it even exists. In Washington, there is really no concern at all about what's happening in the United States.
Yeah.
How high prices are, what we're going to do, within our energy policy, the fact that you've got 200,000 people dying of drug ODs every year,
Yeah.
which is unprecedented. The fact that housing prices are way beyond the reach of almost all young people who aren't, generationally rich, et cetera, et cetera. Like these are huge problems. People aren't getting married. They're not having children. Everyone's gay. I mean, it's like the country's falling apart. But there's no acknowledgement in that because there's no interest in it. All the attention is focused on how we can project American power abroad for whatever reason. You can guess as to the motive there, but I'm just telling you, that's all they care about. That's
Yeah.
all they care about. I mean, getting a seat on the Intel Committee or the Foreign Affairs Committee, that is the highest level of service in the United States Congress. And like, what is that? So in other words, all of Washington is focused on the rest of the world, which they don't understand, whose languages they don't speak. But
That's true.
they fancy themselves experts. They know nothing. They're like truly profoundly ignorant, but they're experts, subject area expert. And nobody in the United States has any idea what's happening there because there's a full media blackout on the rest of the world. I mean, Americans were told with a straight face that Putin blew up his own natural gas pipeline because he's evil. And evil people ultimately just attack themselves they run out of victims and they just blow up their own infrastructure just for the pure animal joy of breaking things. Like they were told that.
Yeah.
And they believed it because how would they know that that's not true? So that has been so interesting to see what the U.S. government is doing and has done abroad. It's just heartbreaking, as someone who really believes in the United States. And I grew up my dad worked for the government in a foreign affairs type job. So I can hardly believe what I'm seeing.